When I was probably about 8 years old, we went on a family trip to Disneyland, and my parents put me in charge of taking pictures of the trip, and I just could not stop taking pictures. And I'm sure that my parents gave me, empty cameras to shoot because I just wouldn't stop pressing the button. And that was sort of the beginning of, that's the earliest memory I have of really being interested in photography. So when I started college and I was studying photography, like a lot of people, I think I thought I wanted to do fashion. Fashion photography is so beautiful, and there are so many creative, talented people who do amazing pictures, and there's this sort of glamour about fashion photography. But I think that I realized at some point that I didn't have the passion for clothing and for the business of fashion that I think you really need to have. And it was sort of after I was in college and I was living in New York, I had a really good friend who was traveling to Cuba, and she asked me if I wanted to go with her. And we went, and I took a bunch of cameras with me, and she was also a photographer, and we spent days walking around Havana shooting. So on this trip to Cuba, I was really interested in interior spaces, and there were so many beautiful spaces that we visited, and it really got me thinking about interior photography. And at the same time, I was working for a number of interiors photographers, and I realized that there was something really special about being allowed into somebody else's space. And it's a very personal connection you make with somebody when you come into their home, and we rifle through things and we move stuff around and we're under everything, and it's a really amazing way to see how people live, and I think you see people in a different way. And that, when I started to realize that about interiors photography, that's when I really got interested in that as something that I wanted to do. One of my first assignments was for Lucky magazine, and it was shooting a portrait of incidentally, a Cuban ballerina. And I was very nervous. And even though I had been shooting for such a long time, it was my first real paid assignment. I knew I had to, come back with the goods, And I really tried to focus on taking pictures that I loved, but also at the same time trying to give them something that I knew that they could use and that would be really useful for them. I think there's always that sort of push-pull between what you really want to shoot and the picture that you really want to take and what the client wants. And, in an ideal world, those things are very close together, but oftentimes they're a little further apart. And what I really try to do is to make sure that I get what the clients need, because that's where the money comes from. But also find time to take the picture that you want to take. And I think that there's always a way to try and get an extra 5 minutes, or change the camera angle, or do something a little different to fulfill that picture that you really want to take. I have been very fortunate to travel all over the world, and I've been to the Republic of Georgia, I've been to Cuba, I've been to France, I've been to Mexico a number of times, I've been to the Caribbean. I've really traveled a lot, and I've been to some extraordinary places, and places that I had to look up on the map before I went there because I wasn't sure exactly where they were. But it is really, truly one of the things that I love about what I do, is that I get to travel and I get to meet people that I might never have met otherwise, and places that I would have never been to otherwise. So some of the people I've worked for are, I work a lot with HGTV magazine, I work with Elle Decor, House Beautiful, Condé Nast Traveler, I've worked with West Elm and Carol's Daughter. I have corporate clients and I have editorial clients, and I'm really lucky to work with a sort of wide variety of people. This year has been a really exciting year for me, and I've had a good opportunity to work on a project that is something that I'm very interested in, and it has to do with interiors. And I've been working with a really interesting group of people and taking beautiful pictures, and I am really excited about launching it into a book project. Another one of the projects that I'm constantly working on is photographs of my kids. They're the light in my life, and I can't get enough of taking pictures of them, and I have pictures of them all over my house, and I could spend hours just looking at pictures that I've taken of my own kids, and I can't wait till they're older, and I hope that they appreciate that they've got this really wonderful collection of photographs of themselves. There are two things that I think are really important for life, photography, career, and the first is make it work. And Tim Gunn really nailed it with that. I mean, there's so many times in my work when, I've been frustrated or I felt like I couldn't kind of overcome something. And, there are so many make it work moments where you just have to plow through and figure out how to take the best picture, do the best job that you possibly can. And my other philosophy is just to be a nice person. I feel like, I've worked with so many different people, and I think that one of the things that, has kind of kept me working is that, I like to think that I'm someone that's easy to get along with. I think there's no place for, nastiness in this business. And if we're not out there doing it and having fun, there's no point in doing it. The advice that I would give to people who are interested in getting into photography, interiors, portraits, whatever, would be to work with somebody that you really respect. I worked for a lot of photographers that I really admired, and I learned so much from them, and I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't go through that. And it's hard being an assistant, and no one says it's easy or always fun, but I think you learn something there that I certainly didn't learn in school. And I also think it's a really good way to find out what you really love. Like I said, I really found a love for interiors working for other photographers who did interiors photography. I think that you have to be very persistent. I think that you have to just keep working at it. There are still times where I still feel like I'm pushing that boulder up the mountain, and it doesn't seem like it will ever end. I think it's a process, and it continues. But I also think that it's really important to be a person who can connect with other people. I think that so many of the advances I've made, in my career have come through personal connections that I have with other people. You meet somebody, you make a personal connection, and that person maybe hires you. You can be the best photographer in the world, but if no one is seeing your work and you're not out there meeting people, you're never going to get hired. I think that's really important. And it seems a sort of unfortunate way that talent isn't the one thing that gets you farthest, but I do think that it is very true that in this business you have to be out there.